Little Jamie, little Jamie, we're sure glad you are here. We're sure glad you are here.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you've had a great day today. I have had a wonderful day and I'm happy to be alive. One more day to talk to you. If you hear little crackling noises in the background, my bad dog is like just trying to get my attention at this very moment. Hi Ellie, do you want to say hi to the camera? Look, say hi. Hi, say hi. Look, say hi. They don't want to talk to you. Do you have any stories to tell? No? You don't have any stories to tell? She doesn't have any stories to tell. Okay, so go lay in your bed. Since you don't have any stories to tell. Come back when you have some stories for us. It's like I have a 2-year-old. Anyway, I wanted to do a video today because after talking a lot about saving myself till marriage, a lot of people have had some questions about how you date when you're a virgin. Some people really just didn't understand how that's possible. In 2016, with what the definition of dating is today, a lot of people really just flat out asked me, how do you date as a virgin? How do you tell certain guys no, especially if they have power and position, if they're rich and or famous? How do you do that? Because they really thought at first that somehow I was only a virgin because my parents were strict and they locked me in a closet and told me I couldn't date till I was 18 or something. And that could not have been further from the truth. Actually, I probably started dating a lot sooner than a lot of my friends. I always could talk to boys. There was never any rule like, oh, you can't talk to boys on the phone until you're 13 or like I never had any of those rules, so it was never a big deal. Which was actually smart of my mom and dad to do. Really, my mom is the one that enforced that rule because it was her idea that if they didn't make it a big deal, it wouldn't be a big deal, and she was absolutely right. So today I guess I'll have a little bit of a story time with you. A person asked me, or basically shared with me, that they figured that I must not have dated a lot of guys, or either the guys that I dated must have not been of a certain status. They must not have been rich or famous or both, because if they were, it probably would have been difficult for me to date and keep my virginity. And that could not have been farther from the truth. I don't know where people get these strange ideas, but it's a lie from the gates of hell. I dated a lot. I dated guys that were famous. I dated guys that were rich. I dated guys that were rich and famous, and I kept my vow. It's all about you and letting people know what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do, and being forward and upfront. I, for one, have never had a problem with being upfront about what I do and do not want to do. So that wasn't an issue. But there's one funny time that I can think of that I've been sharing with people, just to illustrate the point that it really doesn't matter how much money somebody has or doesn't have or whatever. If you want to keep your vow, you keep your vow. And it's all about what you decide that you're going to do. And when I think about this story or any story, I really think about the book of Ruth, because whenever anybody talks about romantic relationships in the church, a lot of times they mention Ruth and Boaz, which, if you haven't read the story of Ruth, definitely I invite you to do so. The book of Ruth is just about a woman who basically finds the man of her dreams after losing her husband, and there's some other details I'm skipping around, but definitely a good story to read. And there's one scripture in the book at about chapter 3, I think, that basically says that Boaz knew that Ruth was a woman of noble character. And that's an interesting scripture to me, because when I think of my journey of keeping my virginity until I was married but still dating, people get the misconception that, you know, men are not going to want to date you, but quite to the contrary. When you are dating and you're a virgin, the word gets around just like it would get around if you were doing other things. So what ends up happening is whoever is not doesn't really like you and wants to be around you for the wrong reasons, you'll know that right away. But the word will get around that you're keeping yourself until marriage, and because that word gets around, whenever the men want to get into something where they're taking someone seriously, they'll look for you. Just like the word would get around if you were doing other things, and then when they want to be around someone that they don't have to be so serious with, they'll look for you. It's the same thing. But it's not as if, I had any difficulty or hard time or anything like that just because I was a virgin. But there's one particular time I I was dating this guy. When I first met him, I had absolutely no idea who he was, but he was a very famous rich guy. I don't know how I didn't know who he was. I mean, I had never seen any of his work, so whatever. I didn't know who he was. And so I met him out one day at an event with a friend of mine, and we got to talking, we exchanged numbers, we talked for weeks and weeks, and I had absolutely no idea who this man was, like at all. He told me he worked for Comcast, and I was just like, oh, that's so nice. How do you like it? And I guess he was just trying to see if I was materialistic or something, but I was absolutely unfazed. I mean, Comcast is a good job, so I was just like, okay, well, you work for Comcast, I'm a student, and whatever. So he finally told me who he really was and stuff, and I was just like, oh, okay, well, why did you tell me you worked for Comcast? And he was just like, I just thought it was funny. I never met anybody that didn't know who I was. And I was just like, oh, okay. So finally we went out on a date, and we went to Lucky Strike, and we had a good time. Lucky Strike, for those of you who don't know, it's like a bowling place. They have pool tables. It's just a fun spot to go to on a first date. I drove my own car because I didn't want it. Even though he was a nice guy and I had been getting to know him, I didn't know him that well, and I didn't know how the date was going to be, so I drove my own car. We met there, we had an awesome time, and then afterwards we went to dinner because I have a dessert problem, and I really was like, there's this great dessert place. Well, actually it's a dinner place, but they sell fantastic dessert, and can we go there? So that's where we went. And while we were there, some friends of his kind of came because we were kind of just hanging out. They had just worked earlier, I'll say. And so we were talking and laughing it up and stuff, and he just kind of blurted out, yeah, you want to go to Miami tonight? And I was like, no. Because first of all, this is our first date, and I don't know you like that. And what you think we're gonna be doing in Miami? Like, it was just really funny. And it was funny because I could tell that he thought that was okay to say, because normally if he would have asked anybody else that, they would have been like, oh, okay, what time we leaving? He wasn't even talking about me going home getting any clothes or anything. Like, he was really like, let's go right now after dinner. I'll buy you some extra clothes for however many days we're going to be away, and let's go. And I was just like, sir, you got me messed up. No, we're not going to do that. First of all, I don't even know you like that. Second of all, no. Third of all, no. And fourth of all, no. And so his friends kind of were like laughing because it was just like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody told you no. And really, the misconception again would be that, like, he had attitude, or he was just like, oh, this little girl. But no, he actually really respected me for it, honestly. And I just really, really, really want everybody to know that it's really not as hard to date and keep a vow to be a virgin as people think it is, or people try to make it seem. People are only going to go as far as you let them go, and they're only going to do as much as you let them do. So if you tell them that you're not comfortable with doing something or going somewhere or being a certain type of way, they either have to respect it or find somebody else. I mean, that's just it. So if you've decided that you are keeping a vow of celibacy, and you know that you have made that vow yourself before you meet this guy over here or this guy over there, then it really shouldn't matter what he's going to think once you tell him that, if you've already made the vow before you met him. Because if he's not cool with it, then he can just go find somebody else. I mean, that's how I always thought about it. And if you're having a problem worrying about what a man is going to say about your vow of celibacy, then you're probably not ready to be dating in the first place, whether you're a younger woman or older woman. If you're having that issue, then you probably need to do a little more self-reflecting before you start dating anybody, period. Because it shouldn't matter to you if you know that you've made this vow to yourself. But still had a good time. I still got to know him. He turned out not to be for me. I mean, I wasn't fazed by who he was or what he had. You know, if somebody's not for you, they're not for you. But he was a nice guy, and he was just trying me, really, like all guys do. I mean, you know, if a guy's really rich, he'll try you by inviting you some crazy place on a vacation that you don't even know him. You know, if he's not, maybe he might do it another way, but I mean, people will try you. What can you say? I mean, and in this world that we live in, you can't blame them for trying, because under normal circumstances, they would think that it would be cool because it's been cool with a lot of other people, so they feel like, oh, it should be cool with you too. Sometimes it can be kind of hilarious, but I never, ever, ever, I'm trying to think, I never had a situation where, you know, the person was just like, oh my God, you're not sleeping with me? Get out of here. Like, I've never actually had that, because I never really carried myself like I cared if somebody was gonna have a problem with it, like, ever. Like, it's not like I ever presented it like, I gotta tell you something, I'm keeping a vow of celibacy. I'm actually a virgin. I want to stay a virgin until I get married. Like, I never presented it like that. It was always like, look, I don't know if you know or not, but I am a virgin and I'm staying that way until I get married. I made a vow to do that. So I don't know if that's something that you think that you'll be able to be in a relationship through, but if not, then I'm not the girl for you. Just straight up. I mean, and a person has to respect that, because you're being straight up with them about something that you believe. So even if they feel like they can't go along with it, or they can't be in a relationship through that, at least they'll respect you. Now, of all the guys that I dated and you know, shared that with, and none of them actually told me that, oh, well, this is not going to work because you're, you know, I can't wait. Well, one of them actually did, but it wasn't a big deal. My husband was actually the only man that was man enough to be the aggressor and not be looking at me like, well, I don't know, like, what do you want? Because sometimes guys in certain positions, whether it be they're popular, they have a lot of money, or they're famous or whatever, sometimes they don't know how to approach a woman properly, because they have so many women throwing themselves at them that they don't really have to try. So they don't get a lot of practice. They have a lot of women just coming at them. And I'm not aggressive by nature, so I did have a lot of situations where a lot of men, like, didn't know how to take me because I wasn't coming on to them all strong, so they didn't understand what that meant, and they didn't really have a lot of experience, or they didn't have any game, as some people would say. So they didn't really understand what they were supposed to be doing. And my husband was the only man that was man enough to approach me correctly, aggressively enough to let me know that he really wanted to be with me. And he was the only one that, when I told him that I was gonna stay a virgin until I was married, he's the only one that said, oh, I'm proud of you. And that was it. He never said anything else about it. We never had an argument about it. It was never an issue. So I say all of that to say, whoever you meet and date while you are a virgin, some people will be able to deal with it, some people won't. But at the end of the day, the person that is meant for you will, and they won't have a problem with it, and it won't be an issue, because it wasn't an issue for my husband, and my husband was not a virgin when I met him. So it's not like he was waiting too before he met me. That was something that he had to take on after he started dating me seriously. So he did it because he wanted to, because he wanted me to know how serious he was about me. So when you meet that person that wants to be serious about you, they will not care about that. But in the meantime, you can have lots of fun going out with different people, meeting different guys, and having a good time. Some people would say, oh my God, if you're keeping the vow of celibacy, you should have your girlfriends all around you at all times, because you don't want to be alone with no man. I mean, you never know what might happen. To those people, honestly, I say everybody's different, and you have to really know who you are. I have never had a problem with self-control around a man, ever. That has never been my vice or my issue. Some people that is, though, and if that is your issue, maybe it probably is a good idea for you maybe to not date so much while you're trying to keep the vow. Maybe you should be more on the tip of just, I'm going to date for finding my husband, and I'm not into foolishness. I didn't do that. I went out, I dated guys, I had a lot of fun. I didn't sleep with anybody, but that was easy for me to do, because keeping myself, having self-control in the presence of a man was never my issue. I never had a problem with that. So if that is your problem, then you might want to rethink some of the things that I've said. But if you're like me and it's not really your issue, then you shouldn't have a problem at all. Just stick to your guns when you're telling people what you will and will not do, and everything will be fine. Sex is not as serious as people make it. They make it seem like you cannot have any dating relationship in the world without sex, and that is absolutely ridiculous. I am not the only woman that kept herself until marriage. There are lots of other women who have, and they have husbands, and their husbands waited and they got married. And there are a lot of other women who have been in serious relationships where sex was a part of it, and they have wanted to be married for a long time and still aren't. So sex is not as big of a deal as people make it. And in actuality, I have found that in sharing so comfortably what I was not willing to do in relationships, I got a lot of respect from men, a lot of respect. And a lot of those men that I have dated that still know me, still have a lot of respect for me to this day because of it. So if you are a virgin out there, or somebody that's trying to keep a vow of celibacy, and you're wondering how you can date as a virgin, or as a person that's keeping themselves, and you're having anxiety about it because the world is telling you oh my God, that's going to be so hard. It was not hard. Take it from me. It was not hard. You just learn how to say no in different ways. No. It's not that deep. Until next time,